everyone! So in today's video, I want to talk about some really common makeup mistakes that I see. And in fact, more specifically, I wanted to talk about kind of my best tips and tricks for concealing acne, pigmentation, as well as dark circles under eyes. I feel like that part of our makeup routines is where a lot can go wrong and can also be like the most frustrating. So I actually have a few acne spots today. I'm going to show you all my best tips on my own face. I'm going to walk you through some common mistakes I see and pitfalls and what I would do instead. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let us begin. One of the biggest missteps that I see when it comes to acne pigmentation, and something that I used to do all of the time when my skin was acting up and I had a lot of blemishes, is I would often skip SPF. And I know it sounds crazy. Thankfully, I probably haven't done that in 15 years, but I was always worried about my sunscreen breaking me out. Protecting your skin ahead of concealing, ahead of the foundation is so crucial. A big beauty mistake I also used to make for a really long time was not heat protecting my hair before I was styling it, and just using a lot of heat tools that were not even effective. So over the course of like my hairstyling journey, even if the tools were saying they used less heat, because I had to use them more often for longer, it like completely outweighed the like supposed benefits. So if I could give you guys a tip, it would be to always use a good heat protectant. I was always worried about like making my hair really greasy. It's just about finding the right products and using an actually effective hair tool that will not heat damage your hair. Which brings me to our sponsor for this portion of the video, which is Dreamy. We all know this is reminiscent of a certain product. I have that one and I have not touched it in a year. I literally just went back to using my traditional hair dryer to try and give me a blowout effect. The Dreamy Airstyle Pro has been a complete game changer for my hair. So most like hot thermal brushes, obviously they just use a lot of heat in order to get the style to stay. The Dreamy Airstyle Pro just uses really strong air in order to get the style that you want, and you can also customize the amount of heat that you want to use. It dries my hair so fast. I want to show you guys how I use it. I rough dry my hair. First of all, the rough dry takes maybe 2 minutes. If that, it gets my hair about 80% dry very quickly. And I always go and style my hair with the Dreamy Airstyle Pro with about 80% dry hair. The brush attachments, look at that before and after, you guys. It gets my hair so stinking smooth. It's crazy. The other one, like we all know the one I'm talking about. It has never gotten my hair to look like that. So I'm able to blow dry and style my hair at the same time. Like the whole process is much faster and my hair is smoother when I'm using this. My favorite attachment is the round brush. I use the round brush on my bangs. I use it to give me that very like blowout effect. They have like the very iconic 360 auto wrap barrels. And if you look at these barrels, guys, they are long and they're strong. They actually hold the hair. They pick up the hair really quickly. And I have long hair, as you guys can see. It picks up the entire length of my hair, which actually gets me a more consistent blowout effect. I always make sure to do a little cool shot if I do want a curl to last longer with this. And the cool shot is really easy. You can just press the button upwards. It's more affordable than getting like the Dyson Airwrap. In my opinion, my hair has consistently looked better. It does not fry the heck out of my hair, and the consistent smoothness is better. This is my hair day 2. I almost always have frizz. It's just insane to me that my hair can keep that smoothness for this long. I mean, you guys saw what my hair looked like when it was rough dried. I mean, that's what it looks like. That's what I'm working with. The fact that it looks like this, kind of insane to me. So rather than having to like redo my hair throughout the entire week, this has just given me the result that I want by day 1, and I don't have to keep using that heat throughout the week. So if you do want to check out the Dreamy Airstyle Pro, I will leave a link down below. And I believe they gave me a code to get you guys like 40% off. So It's already more affordable, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna offer me that code. It's only for a certain window of time, so I will leave you guys a link down below. Thank you so much to Dreamy for sponsoring this video. It is just freaking fantastic. I'm so happy with it. I know we're first talking about some like more skincare-y makeup tips, but it's so integral. It all is all playing together. So my job is to really give you guys the most information on like why we do these things, not just like do this. You know what I mean? I really want you guys to understand the why of why I do things, not just, you know, a prescriptive kind of thing. I actually have quite a few breakouts happening, which obviously sucks, but also it's a unique opportunity to show you all up close and personal how I would cover my acne. So first mistake, as we talked about earlier, is thinking that you shouldn't prep your skin if you do have acne, because I think oftentimes we're really worried about putting on moisturizer onto acne. We think it's just going to make it worse. That is just not the case. In fact, I highly recommend the brand Astura, the 365 cream. This is very lightweight but still hydrating. I highly recommend still to stick to the plan, a good moisturizer and sunscreen on top, especially if you deal with dry pimples the way that I do. So my pimples do tend to be hormonally activated. I have dry skin though, so they can often get very flaky, and you just need to make sure that you're taking care of that area. It is essentially wound healing. Like, that is what we are doing here when it comes to healing acne. And also a lot of like over cleansing. I have been there too, like when my acne is really thriving and having its best life. I have seen people wash their face like upwards of 4 to 5 times a day. I know, like, I understand the inclination. I would say though that if you want to make sure that like the acne causing bacteria is at bay as much as possible, I would recommend maybe just picking up a hypochlorous acid mist. So I love the one from Tower 28. I use this mist daily, probably once a day. You know, if I go into a doctor's office and I leave, I was just at the dentist actually, using this in a pinch to make sure that certain situations are not exacerbating your acne is a great way to go. For example, if you go to the gym and it's going to be an hour or two before you can take a shower, just misting your face with this will really help. Now let's first talk about whether or not we want to use just a foundation on spots like this, or if we want to go ahead and use a concealer. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this, and honestly, I actually think that both options can be good for different times and what your acne needs. So a lot of folks like to just apply like a medium to full coverage foundation all over and then go ahead and spot conceal any of the spots kind of shining through. And if I am in a rush, like if I need to get out the door, that is what I'm going to be doing. I am not going to sit there and conceal every single spot. I think that if you need something to save time, I would highly recommend something like the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. This one does not cake up on acne, even if it's dry, even if it's oily. So this is a really stable, thin, but not like overly drying kind of foundation. Highly recommend this one. I think it's lovely. Another option, if you have more dry or even if you have mature skin, I mean, this is a classic for a reason. It consistently will cover any of the spots that you have. So even if you have like age spots, brown spots, anything of that sort, this does a really good job of covering those. But it's also nice for acne, in my opinion, because it gives you coverage just like that. And I find when I'm using something like this, I don't really feel the need to like go back in and spot conceal every spot. Like by the time I have that coverage on, I feel like it's almost okay to have a couple of spots kind of shining through. And I also want to kind of reiterate that instead of focusing on completely blanking out every single pimple or spot that you might have, I highly recommend, you know, taking your face away from the mirror realize that no one is going to see every single spot. If you have a decent medium coverage on like a spot like this, even if it shines through, I guarantee you no one is really going to be looking at it. And I understand there are certain like occasions like, photography, wedding stuff. I can see wanting to take some full extra steps so that it's all completely covered if you want something very photo ready. But for every day, I think it's totally fine and normal to have spots coming through on your face. It's totally normal. And I have to kind of like remind myself that. It's not always easy to come on here with a bunch of spots on my face. If I can do it, I definitely think that you guys can do it. Do not be afraid. Okay, so now that I'm off my, my little soapbox, I feel like a super common mistake that I see when it comes to concealing acne is overdoing it with the concealer so that eventually there's so much texture happening that it still draws attention to the breakout even if the color has been neutralized. But also picking the correct shade is crucial. So I'm going to show you guys a shade that I think is going to work really well for the technique I'm going to use, which is, for me, picking out a concealer that actually has a little bit more yellow to it. So this is the NYX Pro Fix Stick. This one is really nice if you want a very matte concealer. Don't overuse it because, again, it's more matte, especially on dry pimples. But if you have like hyperpigmentation, etc., this is a great kind of spot concealing tool. It's not overly drying, but again, like I wouldn't use a ton of layers of it. Going ahead and using a concealer like this to spot conceal under foundation, and that way you're also not using potentially medium or full coverage on the entirety of the face because, again, looking up even more up close, you guys, I don't have a ton of other pigmentation other than the post-acne marks. So I don't think I necessarily need to do a full coverage all over for every day. I kind of want to let my skin like shine through. So I'm just going to use that high pigment in certain areas under my foundation. And the reason I want to advocate a little bit for doing it under foundation, if the concealer match is not absolutely perfect, but you have a good foundation match, you're not going to be able to see it as much. And I think that because for whatever reason, I just think that concealer shade ranges are not as good as foundation shade ranges. Ideally, you want to be able to get a really good shade match, but if you're dealing specifically with redness, going with a concealer with a little bit of like an olive or even a more yellow tone than you typically are can help to counteract that redness a little bit, or even get a yellow color corrector and mix it into a concealer you already have. So another mistake that I see people make is using something like this and just dragging it right over a pimple. In a pinch, I get it, but I also think kind of warming up a really matte product like this, it's going to give you a better result, and you'll realize that you actually need a lot less than you do. Now, what you can do is take it on the back of your hand, warm it up with a finger, and then go and press it on. Something that I also like to do, because I feel like it gives me more precision, is taking it onto the back of my hand, getting that all warmed up, and using a kind of paw style brush. I'll leave a couple of my favorites down below. This is the one from BK. It's the Angie Hot and Flashy 506. Taking that and really prepping it into the brush. We're not just like hoping for the best here. Like when you use a little bit of technique when it comes to covering those pimples or red marks, the end result will definitely show. So taking that and just pressing on. And what you're gonna notice is that I am pressing. So I talk about this a lot. We are trying to press the product on rather than drag it, because when you kind of drag or just like for the best, not really pay attention to the blending, you can sometimes really just blend away your coverage. And then you're like, where's all the concealer? That's absolutely happened to me. But what's also nice about doing this technique is you can angle the brush onto different sides of the pimple itself, because pimples are round and you want to make sure that you're getting the entirety of that shape. Sometimes I just like lean my head back and make sure that I'm concealing from all of those angles. And something else that I like to do if I want to kind of take advantage of a flat surface is I'll stick my tongue like this. I know this is kind of weird, but it definitely works for any breakouts on your chin. Kind of flattens it out. See how much better I got coverage with that? Because it kind of flattens it out and I'm able to get those kind of round edges even easier. So I'm sure some of you guys have done that before too. And that is almost, I'm gonna say that's like 85% covered. And we're gonna leave it. Might feel like you really wanna completely cover it, but just wait because we still have foundation. But I'm gonna show you guys again, taking that brush, pressing that product on, and then once it's covered, leave it. That's almost completely covered. That one is a lot flatter and not as big, so it didn't really take much effort. And then this one, do the same thing, kind of give you a more flush space to work with. I know this looks weird, but like my goal isn't to not look weird, it's to actually help you guys. So, and I'm just gonna cover that little spot that like will not go away either. See how I'm just pressing and it's gone. This one's gonna be harder, and the reason being is that it's near quite a lot of hair because of my eyebrows. So I'm gonna kind of focus a little bit more concealer on the tip of this brush. I'm gonna kind of feather this on a little bit. And I'm gonna call that good. Again, this one is especially dry, so I really want to prioritize the quality look of my skin over the complete coverage. And with dry pimples, less is more as far as that goes. See, like, you can still see it peeking through, but if I add another layer of concealer, it's gonna start looking dry. Okay, so now let's talk about like how to apply the coverage all over the skin. There are a lot of different ways that you could do this. I think it's important to, I think when using this technique, kind of painting on the concealer, it's not like completely blended, but kind of using this technique of spot concealing under, you want to use a foundation that can go over top and not completely wipe away that coverage. And it's a twofold thing. So like if you are used to, this mistake gets to me, just kind of like willy-nilly popping on the foundation, this is not going to be the technique for you because you're going to kind of undo a lot of the work that you just did. So I would almost recommend instead to just go for like a medium to full coverage foundation all over, and you might actually get a faster result rather than this kind of technique. But again, like there wouldn't be much of a video if I just put on a foundation, you know what I mean? So I wanted to show you guys this technique. By the way, again, if you have more acne prone skin, hormonal or not, again, throughout your makeup routine, you can also use something like this. I really like doing that on days when I'm just feeling extra, I want like extra sad about my skin or extra, I would say maybe a little bit more anxious about putting on makeup because again, it's not like ideal to put makeup on acne. Sometimes you feel like you really need to, or you have like an event or whatever reason. Either way, it's fine. But yeah, in instances like that, I always keep this on my vanity with all of the makeup that I have. I honestly have multiples of, like I have one of these in my car. I have one of these with my makeup. You guys know, I feel like this is now the second time I've referenced my Big Fat Greek wedding on my channel, funny enough. But if you know like how they put like Windex on everything and it like fixes everything, I do kind of feel that way about this one. Okay, either way. So back to the foundation. I personally think it's important with this technique to work with a foundation that has good adherence. A very common mistake I see is people wondering why their acne or their pigmentation just won't be covered up but they're using certain products that don't want to, formulation-wise, want to kind of stick to the skin and almost have a set down. So for example, the It Cosmetics doesn't have a crazy set down, but it does want to adhere to the skin like that. Like it does a really good job of doing that. The NARS has a set down and it wants to adhere to the skin. It's not going to remain really movable. And of course, you can go in and set your foundation if that's what you want to do. But I find that within the formula itself, we should be looking for something that isn't as movable. So I'm gonna go into my makeup closet and pull out a few more examples. Okay, I brought out a few examples to show you guys. So something like the Hydrolux foundation from Patrick Ta. This is, oh my gosh, you can even see the way it's separated. This has quite a lot of almost like moisturizer ingredients to it. So this is not going to be ideal if you want to make sure that all of this coverage is set down into place. This is going to kind of move anything that you have going on under foundation, which if you wanted to apply this and then go on top with another concealer, go for it, but it's not going to like to stick to this. I find that though it looks really pretty, you know, cream products, bronzer, that it's all going to look pretty good, but if you deal with pigmentation issues, this product, it just like concealer and coverage doesn't want to stick to it. It's so sheer. This can be like a really frustrating issue, I know, for a lot of you. Actually, ironically, a product that I don't like, but this technique would work really well with is the Hydro Grip Gel Tint from Milk Makeup. I've seen some people that look absolutely fantastic in this product. I don't think it's the best for dry skin or like flaking skin in my opinion, but it does have that stick. And I do feel like with this technique, something like this would work really well. I want to go with something with very light coverage though. This Chantecaille Future the gel foundation, I haven't done this with this one before, so this could go completely wrong, but this has its own dry down, and because of the texture, I have a feeling that it's going to work really well with this. So I want to show you with this one. I also want to call out, maybe I'll call out really fast a product that I do not think would work well with this. Easy Blur or like the Fenty Eavesdrop. There's so much silicone in this that I feel like the silicone would just wipe away every little spot of concealer we have. So I would say with this technique, those are the ones I just like pulled out a few that I felt like a lot of people might use. And yeah, so I wouldn't recommend those with this kind of technique personally. But let's go ahead and use the Chantecaille. This is Alabaster. This isn't my perfect shade. It's like I keep thinking like, do I really want to try this with this? But I feel like my experience with this foundation, this is going to work really well. So here is my personal recommendation. So I see a lot of people wanting to go in with their foundation and again, just kind of like wipe it all over. That is not what we're going to do here. In fact, I would almost recommend you all try applying with a dry sponge. You could even go in with like a brush. I think a brush is a great option as well, but I feel like everyone already has a sponge. So I would just want to show you with a sponge because this is something that you could literally try tonight or tomorrow or wherever. So I have that foundation onto the sponge. I'm just gonna kind of tap that on. And with a dry sponge, you're gonna get more coverage, but also I personally find that you get better adherence because you're not adding this layer of moisture that could potentially disrupt the coverage. So you guys can see here, this is quite light coverage, but for whatever reason, it makes the skin look so perfected. This is a really good one. One of you guys let me know the last time I used this, this is actually the foundation they used on Euphoria because they wanted to use foundation, but they didn't want it to look like a lot of product. So we're gonna go ahead and apply this on. And you see the way I'm like, once it's blended, I've moved on. I've moved on. We're not gonna sit there and blend out the same spot until we can start to see the pimples again. Pressing that on. I forgot that I had a spot of foundation up here, but This is good because it has a dry down. So like it's not completely dried down now, but it does have like this kind of self-setting thing that happens. Again, there's that pimple. Just gonna tap it on. So since this is my first time trying this technique with this foundation, I would say I'm like 80% happy with it for this technique in specific. I do think that because this is more of a gel texture, you have to be a little bit more careful, but you can see that this is actually not going to need a powder on me, which again, when you have acne that you're trying to cover, it is nice to be able to layer a thin layer of powder on just to kind of set everything in place. Now I am going to go ahead and show you guys again my under eye concealer technique because we're here. I know I've done a lot of videos on this, but I mean, it's like, why not? So my under eyes have been feeling not amazing as of late. One thing that I personally find works really well for me when my under eyes are just feeling tired, they're feeling dry. And of course, this goes back to the skin prep conversation that we were having. I am going to start being more diligent with my eye cream. Sometimes I notice that when I'm not being as diligent, my under eyes start to suffer. So this one from Tier, the Collagen Lifting Eye Cream, it has this like really lovely little rolly ball on it that's very cooling. This does not give me milia either. Topical collagen is really good for kind of softly plumping up the skin, giving it hydration. It's not something that is going to stimulate us to make our own collagen. That's not really what topical collagen on the surface of the skin can do. However, there is more research suggesting that like taking collagen every day can be helpful. I've actually started to do that myself. But either way, let's get back to the eyes. If you suffer with hollow under eyes like I do, having this kind of cooling applicator does kind of get the lymphatic drainage going. I find that it depuffs really beautifully. And because this is so lightweight, I never feel like it messes with my concealer. So I did already apply this under the eyes a little bit this morning, but I'm just gonna take even just like the slightest bit. You kind of like press down on this applicator and it comes back. I just wanna like show you guys. I'm gonna try to just focus it under the eye. Hopefully this doesn't mess with the foundation too much, but you see, well, actually you guys probably can't see, but this feels amazing. Absolutely amazing. And a lot of products with these kind of applicators are super expensive. This one is not. Tier is not. And I just love that I never have to worry about it giving me milia because I am prone to milia. And then I also do this. Oh my God, that's actually kind of my favorite part because my upper eyelids get so dry and irritated. I just get allergies. So like this feels absolutely amazing. I've actually been considering getting into like a gua sha routine. Let me know if that's something that you guys have experience with. I do not have experience with it, but I've been thinking more about lymphatic drainage in general. I don't know if you guys can see on camera, but I can feel physically my eyes are feeling better now. It just gets the blood flow going in like the way, for me, like the way it's supposed to. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go in and tap any of that excess in and make sure that we're giving it time to sink in. And of course, like, I don't recommend doing this like over your sunscreen. I'm just doing it because I wanted to show you guys the eye cream, but do this under your sunscreen and make sure that you're always taking your sunscreen onto the actual eyes, like around the eyes, not in your eyes. And I already told you guys my favorite that doesn't burn my eyes. So there we go. We're all set. It actually gave like a really nice kind of soft glow too. I'm going to show you now the technique that I've been using most of the time when it comes to concealing my hollow under eyes. Now, this is what I have been doing. So sometimes I do like to use my concealer, my Kosas Revealer. You guys, you know the spiel about this one. just put it on and be done, especially when my under eyes are feeling dry or just in general aren't doing well. I always know that this one isn't going to exaggerate dryness or like look awkward under the eyes. I've used it for years. What I've been really liking to do lately, and this is a big technique that I've talked about to you guys in the past, but I just want to remind you, is I have actually been liking to mix my Kosas extra bright color corrector into my concealers. So you can see the 1.5C color for me already has a little slight bit of pinky peachness to it. So this shade already works really well, I think, to kind of counteract some of the purpley blue that I have under here. But when I add a smidge of this stuff, the extra bright in the shade Illusion, I feel like it takes it to the next level. So what I'm gonna do is, you can literally do this under the eye. Like, you can just apply the concealer under the eye and do this mixing technique, but I'll show you on the back of my hand just because I already put that concealer there and I want to use it up. So I have that concealer there, and now I'm gonna add, look at that. Like, I'm not even adding a ton of that to this. And this is gonna keep everything in one beautiful layer. We're gonna mix this. Oh, that is a good color corrective shade. And I'm just going to tap that on under the eyes, really concentrating it on that area where I have the most hollowness. So right here, I even take it onto the side of the nose because this will help to flatten out that hollow, like it'll become very flush. But I'm gonna make sure to get all of that, and I always put a little bit on the inner portion of the eye right there because this is where I have darkness. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And as we know, I'm going to let it sit. I still do this. I let it sit. Does it look crazy right now? Absolutely. But what I do now is I'll go ahead and do my brows. When this is done sitting, I will come back. But essentially, we are doing this technique. We're letting the concealer sit so that it starts to become a little bit less flexible. The coverage will remain where you place it even more. It's a similar technique that we did with covering some of the spots that I have. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my brows. This will sit for a second and then I will show you guys the result. All right, the concealer has been sitting. We are now going to go ahead and blend. I always like to do this with like a mirror a little bit closer up. And I just press that in. And I'm not dragging. That's like probably, if you haven't noticed, it's probably one of the most common makeup concealer mistakes. So I'm just pressing that on. Then once it's blended, I'm moving on. And then right at the end, I'll sometimes take a sponge and make sure everything is really even. But right now I'm still using that same brush. Do you see how much coverage we got out of that? And it really was not a lot of product. One single layer. Hollowness looks so much better. Finally, something that I want to talk about is setting. So I know a lot of people like to set the under eye, and I want to show you guys, if you have hollowness under the eyes, but you also have dryness, this is the way that I set my under eyes when I want to, again, get the coverage, but I also don't want it to look dry. I definitely want to make everything look a little bit flatter. I love the RMS Hydra Powder for my under eyes. I also just like it in general. I think it's a really excellent powder. So what you're not gonna do is just take that powder that's on the brush, load it up like that. We are making sure that the product is evenly coated on the brush, because if it's not evenly coated on the brush, it's not gonna be evenly coated under your eyes. It's gonna start to, there's gonna be some areas with more and less powder. It's gonna look a little bit awkward. So the product is loaded onto this side. I'm now going to make sure I don't have any like really obvious creases or anything. I'm gonna tap out a little bit. Creasing is normal though, just so you guys know. And then I'm going to press this into that hollow, but I'm also going to take the powder from the side of the nose into the hollow and across, we're almost kind of using the side of our nose as a way to make everything look more flush and almost like filling in that hollow. So I'm doing it this way, right over this. Under here a little bit as well. So side of the nose all the way over. And again, I'm not setting the entirety of the face. This is still going to help. Like, can you guys see the difference? It's still going to help flatten that area without needing to like set the entirety of the face. I just find that that looks very, very natural. And again, taking it even down here a little bit below the hollow can also help that. So same thing. I'm not taking that powder and putting that directly under the eye. Absolutely not. I'm going to make sure that I am prepping the powder into the brush. We're honestly like taking off quite a bit of that. We don't need a ton of powder. So same thing, onto the side of the nose and cutting over. Look at that. Right onto the side of the nose and cutting just a little bit below that. We don't need to take it all right here if we don't want to, which I don't want to. I think the skin looks really fresh, and I'm really digging the actual texture of Chantecaille foundation. It just, there's something about the texture of it that looks really, really good on set completely. But look at the under eyes. Just a one layer of concealer, you know, our little concoction and powder. That is it. Really, it's about the technique. It's not necessarily about how much you're using. So I'm gonna do the rest of my makeup. I will be right back. So I was finishing up my makeup, then I realized there was one technique I wanted to show you guys. If you are applying cream product on top of acne and you have, again, that concealer over it, a big tip that I have for you guys is using a dry sponge again to press that product in rather than dragging it and moving around that product. Also, I also find that this kind of takes away a little bit of the dewy finish, and dewiness is nice, but sometimes it can highlight acne. So again, dry sponge is a hack for concealer, for coverage that way more people need to talk about. And by the way, I'm using my good old Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Bronzer. I love this one. I haven't used it in a while though. I love the big mirror. Actually, I don't know why I'm not using the mirror right now because it's honestly better than my desk mirror. And wow, it just does such a good job of it, like airbrushing everything. And now that we're nearing the end of the routine, you know, I still need to like do my lip color and everything. But now is when when your makeup starts to settle, when everything is kind of becoming final. Right now is when I would say, like, if you see some spots still peeking through, you can also go back in with your brush with just a whisper of product. And again, just very lightly onto those areas. Once you see the whole makeup look come together, I am not nearly as focused on the blemishes. Now that I'm kind of taking a step back, I'm looking away from the mirror, I'm not as, you know, fixated on it. And we love, I think a lot of us love to fixate on our own faces. But I feel like it's also a really nice reminder when we take that step back that it's really not as noticeable as we might, like, it might be. We might think it is. All right, everyone, this is the completed look. I hope that you guys found all of the concealer tips and tricks helpful. If you have any other questions, specific things that you struggle with when it comes to concealing acne or hollow under eyes or darkness, anything like that, please leave me a comment down below and I'll be there to try and help you guys and guide you through. Another huge thank you to the sponsor of the video, Dreamy. And I do have the 40% off discount, so I will leave all the details down below. But overall, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for supporting my channel, and I will see you in my next one.